you all for coming, and thanks for letting me present Minswap. Yeah, the Cardano DEX. Okay, so first I'll talk a little bit about myself, what I do for Minswap, how I got kind of involved. Actually, yeah, just this month it turned 1 year since I joined the core team, but I was there kind of since the beginning, more like a shit poster on Discord. Like, if you want to enter crypto, it's a very good way to just be on Discord and socialize with the teams and get to know them. And that's how I kind of learned a lot of my knowledge, just being on Discord and asking questions to the Minswap team. And that's how they got to know me as well. And yeah, so after developing kind of a relationship, I asked if I could join the team, and they said sure. So since there, it's been quite a ride. Like, I joined a little bit before we launched the mainnet. Yeah, so since then it's been a ride. What I do, so it's difficult to kind of categorize, but basically, like, Minswap started as a bunch of devs in Vietnam, very young devs. It just was 3, now it's a few more. And they needed somebody to take charge of more like the business side, the writing articles and so on. And that's what I do. For example, I focus a lot on the tokenomics, the incentive design, partnerships, for example. Yeah, we want to be the main DEX on Cardano for projects to list and to kind of incentivize their liquidity. Yeah, then I also focusing lately a little bit on the governance as well. Yeah, and a disclaimer, I'm not doxxed. I don't really like to dox, so if you post a picture, please don't put my face there. Yeah, it's crypto, and I try to stay a bit unknown. Actually, it's the first time that I like present. Normally, I'm just hiding behind like an anime profile picture, like on the Twitter space. So yeah, it's the first time that I talk. Yeah, and also I'm part of the core team on Optim Finance. So Optim Finance is another pretty big Cardano project. They do like some little bit more specialized products. If you want, maybe next time I can talk about them. But it started as one core team member of Minswap, raised some funds to start it, and he also needed some help. What? Hold microphone. Okay, sorry. Yeah, one guy from the Minswap team kind of spin it off, and he needed some help. So I do basically the same that I do for Minswap, for Optim as well, writing the Medium articles, thinking about the tokenomics, also the community side. And yeah, those are my socials. If you want to reach out, maybe if you are launching a project, need some advice on tokenomics or the liquidity, feel free to reach out. Yeah. Okay, so for what to talk about, honestly, I didn't know how much the audience will know about Cardano or DeFi, so I tried to be both like the very simple, but then also get a little bit more technical and mention a little bit the more complex part of DeFi. DeFi can get very complex, and that's one of my pet peeves, that the industry sometimes, it's very cool to do all this financial engineering and so on, but normal people, they will not understand most of these concepts, and they don't need to. So sometimes it's important to keep it simple, and that's something with Minswap that we try all the time to not get too complex. I'll talk a little bit about how Minswap got started, then what the DEX offering is, what makes us different, both like in Cardano but also in the wider DeFi scope, and then a little bit of the outlook of DeFi in general, DeFi for Cardano, as well for Minswap, and then if you have any questions. Okay, so how it got started, around 2 years ago, I wasn't part of the team, but it started just as a catalyst proposal, which Jeremy kind of explained a bit about what it is, but basically it's like a big treasury with a lot of ADA, and people can vote to allocate it to projects. So there were some devs in Vietnam that needed funding, and they just requested it, and that's how it kind of got started. And it's really amazing to have something like that. No other blockchain has something like Catalyst, where some devs from nowhere can get funding and have people vote for them. do in a decentralized way and with ADA as the voting token. Okay, and then, yeah, so some highlights. Before we launched, like it was a long time before launch to develop a DEX. It took quite a lot of effort and coding, and there were like some, how to say, like roadblocks and obstacles on the way, as well as like some milestones. Actually, one of the highlights was the Minswap FISO. So this, I didn't design it, the guy that founded Optim designed it, but this is probably one of the best things that have happened on Cardano, which is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the concept of the ISO, but it's some sort of airdrop that you get it by staking in different staking pools. And so the focus of the FISO was to strengthen the smaller pools and drive delegation there, because that will help with the decentralization of the network. So it's something that, yeah, we got touted a lot for Ada Whale, and some other people said that this is the best design, and then it was adopted by other projects. They did the same. Basically, the idea is to drive delegation towards the smaller pools by incentivizing them, the delegators, with tokens from the project. And then, yeah, the biggest like fad, or like there was the drama at that moment was insane when we launched the testnet. The testnet was launched kind of quickly because at that time the competition was very fierce between Cardano projects. So the devs kind of rushed it and delivered a testnet without any sort of solution for what is called the concurrency on Cardano. I'm not sure if you have heard, but like a lot of the wider crypto audience kind of, yeah, took this fat because basically, yeah, the transaction need to be batched off-chain, and at that moment the solution for that wasn't. So basically, like people, actually it was not the smartest design, because there was also some incentives for the testnet where people needed to spam transactions. And what happened is that the transactions were super slow. It would take you like 10 minutes and people just kept clicking. So yeah, there were people waiting like hours for a simple swap to get done. And like to have a blockchain where they are always talking about like research and yeah, principles based and so on, where the transaction would take an hour. It wasn't the best look. But yeah, with time it got fixed, and yeah, we iterated on that. Maybe it wasn't the best look for Cardano at the time, but it also showed that, yeah, that software like is based on improvement, and that, yeah, later on, this was like dispelled a bit more as fun, and now you don't need to wait hours to do a swap, but much less, yeah. Okay, so about the core offering, I will keep it very simple. Minswap is a DEX. Actually, yeah, the biggest one in terms of TVL currently on Cardano. You can swap. We actually have the trading view charts if you're a little bit more of the technical. You can SAP. This was one of the highlight features. Actually, it's a common feature on DeFi protocols on other chains, but on Cardano, because it's so new, like most of the people are using DeFi for the first time on Cardano, they found this feature like super cool. And basically what you can do is provide liquidity just with one of the assets. You don't need both. So for example, if you have a lot of Cardano and you want to be liquidity provider for Cardano to USD, you can do it just with Cardano. You don't need to swap Cardano for USD and then provide the liquidity. Yeah, this was one of the greatest features, and it kind of, yeah, highlighted that Cardano DeFi is still starting, so these kind of features that make it easy are very important. Then like in any DEX, you can do farming. We do a little bit of a special approach on the farming, especially on the how we calculate the APRs and so on. But yeah, standard DEX about the farming. Something that we did special that no other DEX on Cardano had done. When the first DEX that launched on Cardano was SundaySwap, and there was like huge hype with them, but they kind of messed up a few things because their farming pools they only had for 3 projects, and that was kind of their partner projects, and we thought like this is not how you should incentivize liquidity on a DEX, just like your partner project. You should incentivize the pool that has the most trading and most interest and most TVL, not just like your friends or something. So when we came, we opened up farming for basically every pair. So we also captured every type of community, even like NFT tokens, DeFi tokens. You have the like more real fi side, like World Mobile, stuff like that. So something that we did that helped a lot to capture different audiences was to open the farming to almost all the tokens on Cardano, and then one of the coolest offering we also have is the launch ball. I'm not sure how much to elaborate, but basically there's different ways to launch a token on Minswap. The easiest one is the mouse farm, where like the project itself will do some farming. It's a good approach to bootstrap TVL quickly, but it's not the most sustainable. So for more sustainable, we have the other two initiatives. The LBE is the one that Minswap itself used, and I think that it helped a lot because basically how it works is that people provide ADA. Basically, it's like you're sapping the ADA, so you put 1,000 ADA, and at the end you will receive 500 and 500 ADA worth of mint tokens. So we did that. It was the first one on Cardano, and it went really, really well. We got like 22 million ADA. It was like 22 million USD at the time, and starting a DEX with such huge liquidity definitely helped a lot. And this one I designed the LBE, like probably one of the proudest thing that I am of. So we thought it went so well that we will open it up to other projects. We've done a few more. We've done it with an NFT project, Mokosi, as well as Indigo, kind of the synthetics protocol of Cardano. Although, there is like some issues now with how the liquidity works, the liquidity bootstrapping works. I think we can iterate it a little bit more and improve it. But those are the initiatives we have for projects to launch. Although, currently launching a token in a bear market sometimes isn't the smartest, so we are advising the projects to maybe wait a little bit or to think a bit more about the tokenomics before just launching a token, so what makes Minswap different within Cardano? I think, so one of the focus is that since the start, they were very keen on like not accepting VCs. We actually had some conversation with some, and even I thought like within the team we should accept some funding to expedite the process and have more funds, but I also think that the VC funding current scenario is a little bit predatory towards retail. So within the team, like mostly the devs, they were absolutely against like any sort of VC funding, and it's been proving pretty good strategy because the other projects that have allocated to VCs have this like constant sell pressure, and it's just for the Cardano community, they usually are not very welcome of the VCs, so it's also like a good point on that sense. Then another thing that I think differentiated a lot Minswap was like a smoother UX. If you compare the other DEXs, they feel a bit more like boomer. Like our team is mostly like the oldest guy is 26 years old, so we are very young and we kind of know DeFi from the inside, so we know who we are catering to, and I think that helps in the design. We also, at the beginning when we were launching the DEXs on Cardano, the speed was one of the most important parts, and that's something that the team focused the most to have the most quick DEX in terms of the transaction. Now I'm not sure how much a transaction, whenever I do a swap, like it will take me 30 to 40 seconds, so that's pretty good, and then, currently we are the biggest DEX in terms of liquidity. I think, we achieved that through some of the things that I mentioned, like starting the DEX with a huge mint to ADA liquidity pool. helped a lot. And most of this liquidity is owned by the protocol. And then like opening farming to different pairs helped a lot as well. So yeah, we're currently almost like 2-3 times of the second biggest. But the TVL on Cardano is still very small, so it will grow bigger. Yeah, and actually in terms of ADA, the decline hasn't been that much. It's just that the ADA price went down a lot, so there's very little liquidity in terms of US dollar. Yeah, and in terms of the tokenomics, like probably is one of the fairest tokenomics I've ever seen. Like almost all of it goes to the community through farming and different initiatives. So yeah, I think that was something super important from the beginning to be clear on giving most of the token to the community and not like insiders or something. Yeah, and there, as I mentioned, like the mint token liquidity is like really the most important thing for a DEX, I think, at least currently, is like how liquid is the DEX token, because it's what you use to incentivize the liquidity. So you need to really bear in mind how liquid it is. And like currently the liquidity pool for Mint has like 80 million ADA versus like 4 or 2 or 1 of the other DEXs, yeah. Then also, yeah, I think like we're a DEX on Cardano, we can still innovate and compete with other DEXs. I mean, we don't have the funding to compete with like Uniswap or so on, but we can still do different things or things that are better, and that's what we've been trying since the beginning. For example, yeah, we saw that most of the DEXs, how they determine the emissions is kind of arbitrary. Like, as I said, SundaySwap, this other DEX, they kind of put the emission according to their partner projects. Some other projects, they will, yeah, according to the APR. And what we do basically is some formula that actually a community member of us, who is like a quantitative finance expert or so, designed, and it looks at the TVL and the volume of the different pairs. So basically it's purely data driven. We don't make any favorites. Every project incentivizes the same according to the market, what the market decides. Then something that I'm really proud of is also a dynamic vesting schedule. So if you see most of the DeFi projects, their token will vest probably like over 4 years, and most of the supply goes out in the first year, and the second a bit less, and then the third. It comes from the design of Bitcoin. Basically, they just look at how Bitcoin did the vesting and then just copy it. But I think for a DEX, it doesn't make sense to be that linear. Probably makes sense for Bitcoin, is more like a commodity, or for like Cardano. But for Minswap, it's a DEX, so you need to think of it more as equity. And like equity in a company is not just distributed according like linearly. You do it according to the market events, like is it a bull market, a bear market? So that's something that I'm very proud of, to innovate on the vesting schedule, and as far as I know, like no other DEX or other chain does something like that. Then yeah, another big focus of Minswap was on what they call like protocol-owned liquidity. This is like so important. It means when a DEX or a DeFi project owns their own liquidity. So for example, in our treasury, we have like $2.5 million worth of Mint to ADA liquidity, which yeah, is a lot of money. And what this means is like this liquidity, it belongs to the protocol itself. So even if there was some catastrophe and a lot of people remove the liquidity, this will still be there. And also a lot of the impermanent loss is borne by the protocol itself if the token has a lot of sell pressure. So then we also do these other initiatives like this launch pool that I mentioned before, to increase this protocol liquidity, which is kind of like the treasury of Minswap, yeah. And then, oh wait, yeah, if you've seen on Twitter, we always post these. These are like, so every 2 weeks we change the emissions, and it will determine the APR, and it goes historically by the TVL and volume of the liquidity pool. And then, yeah, another thing that we do is that, so you know how in most other chains, the staking of the native token, you have to lock it, but on Cardano is a bit different. It's liquid staking, so you don't need, you can still have custody of it and it can be still staked. It's very different to, for example, Ethereum, where you need like a liquid staking derivative. So you're kind of locking the ETH and they give you a receipt. On Cardano is, actually I would say the design is much better because it allows to stake the ADA while it is in a liquidity pool. Yeah, you can just do it on your own. And then, yeah, something different is the governance, although this is still developing, but we also want to take a different approach on the governance. I think that DeFi governance is known for like that nobody really cares about voting or like getting involved. So we kind of need to change that a bit. So actually in times of the bear market, I think it's very important, or I myself find thinking a lot of times like why are we still here? Like where do we go? Is this DeFi thing really worth it? Is it gonna happen or not? And for me, what helps me a lot, like to keep the belief is, I watch a lot of podcasts, and when I see like new narratives or new things that I think are gonna really disrupt the space, and one of them I think is the fixed income. So there's this protocol that I've been learning a lot, and several that do fixed income, but basically the idea is that in DeFi currently, other rates, for example, in lending protocols are variables. So imagine if you have a loan and in one day the interest that you're paying goes from like 2% to 20%. That can happen in DeFi, but that would be a bit weird if it happens like in the real world. So how you avoid that is through fixed income instruments. And there's this one that I really like, you should check it out, it's called IPOR. A bit more complex to dive into what they do, but basically they enable interest rate swaps. And with interest rate swaps, you can have like fixed rate lending, which is really important. Like you can enter a loan for 10 years at the same fixed rate. It's something in DeFi that currently you cannot do, but I feel like, fixed income in traditional market is like huge share. And most of DeFi currently focus on more like exotic things like derivatives and so on. And that's not as big in the traditional market, so I feel like, fixed income will be like a bigger driver, I think, going forward, and should be like a bigger focus. Then another narrative is called the real yield. So most of the like DEXs or DeFi, how they get the yield is through like inflationary token schemes that are not very sustainable. So a narrative that started forming was about token that would pay you in what they call real yield, that is generated through not inflationary measures. So for example, like the swapping fees on a DEX, or there's a very big protocol on Arbitrum called GMX that basically directs a lot of fees. The APR is like 20%, and it's all non-inflationary, or most of it. So I think that will be one of the incoming narratives, that DeFi protocols pay an actual non-inflationary yield that will be very important. Then another one is the real-world asset. I'm not sure how deep I can get here, but there's a lot of big proponents about basically this can range from just USDC, like USDC is a real-world asset, putting US dollar on the blockchain, to like having your house on the blockchain and what would enable. It's a very big field, but I do think that is the way going forward to have more real-world assets. I think that's something the Cardano Foundation also focused a lot on. Then as I mentioned a little bit, I think that there's still a lot of innovation to come from the tokenomics. Like DeFi went a bit like to the complex side and started designing very complex schemes. And I feel like they can still be simplified, although going even more complex as well. For example, the power tokens for the IPOR protocol is like a new initiative, and the VE is what the Curve protocol uses is another sort of tokenomics that try try to make it more sustainable, but yeah, it's really not. So I feel like there need to be more innovation, but to keep it simple as well, which most protocols don't really try. And then I feel like another narrative that will benefit DeFi in general will be like more consumer apps. I'm not sure if you're aware of like Steppen. In Cardano we have a very similar one called Cycler with cycles, so you get paid for biking. I think that those sort of like consumer app will help a lot. It's just they need to figure out a way to make it sustainable and not with like some inflationary token, but those in gaming, I think that will benefit DeFi a lot. Then yeah, for the outlook of Cardano DeFi, I mean, 2023 looks like gonna be more like a basic year. So like 2022, we got the smart contracts and like some DeFi apps started launching, but it was mostly DEX. And now it's time for the bigger like lending protocols like Meld and Liquid that enable so much more, like a chain where you don't have the lending protocols is not really developed in terms of DeFi, and once you get those, you can start building on top, and I really think that they're gonna be huge. And then as well, launch of some stable coins. Like we currently don't really have stable coins on Cardano, which is pretty strange for a chain, and it's a really important part of DeFi in general. So once we get some more trusted and reliable stable coins, I think that will help a lot. And then yeah, I feel like 2023 will still be a year of building on that, and protocols like composing with each other around those two. And then 2024 will be more dedicated to scalability. Like, as I said, 30-40 seconds for a swap, like, is doable, but I don't think it's really for the mass adoption. So I think like 2024 will be the year where protocols start thinking about how do we be really scalable and are ready for the next wave. And then yeah, for the outlook for Minswap, I mean, I'm very positive. I really think when you spend a lot of time with like developers, as I do, usually it can get a bit pessimistic because they are very close to the day-to-day and the problems of developing. But for me, I always keep the optimistic outlook. Yeah, and I think, for example, there's a lot of discussion about revenue sharing on the Mint token. Usually this discussion about revenue sharing end up a little bit not productive because the people who suggest this, they just want to see the token price rise, but currently the DEX doesn't generate as much revenue to make the token a lot of APR just from sharing the fees. And when the protocol is still building, it's better, I think, to keep most of the fees to build in the early days. Like, for example, when it comes to revenue sharing, it would mean like a company, early stage company, like distributing dividend, which is not really the case. So I feel like, yeah, we still have a lot of time to develop on revenue sharing and tokenomics, but I wouldn't say like it makes sense to do anytime soon. Then yeah, we will branch out to new products. Stable swap. Actually, we did a poll like a few days ago about the stable swap. Most people don't know what it is. Basically, it's like an easier way to trade pegged assets. Currently, like the model is a constant product, so it's not the most ideal for pegged asset. And then, yeah, for new products, we're also thinking in the fixed income area, but this is a more complex area to dive into, but that's what excites to me the most in terms of new products. Then I think that Minswap, yeah, I was talking to Jeremy, and I feel like we need to also have a better approach in the wider Cardano space, like have a voice within Cardano as well as Minswap. I think that'd be huge. For example, so Minswap has like about 80 million ADA in TVL, And well, actually it's 40 million because the other side of the pair is counted in ADA. And so this 40 million ADA could vote in Catalyst as well. And yeah, decide which projects get funded. And it would be the mint holders, for example, who can decide how this ADA votes. I think that'd be pretty cool. Or also just with the ADA that is in the treasury, about 5 million currently. So I feel like this is something that only possible on Cardano, so Minswap need to think a bit more about its governance role. I mean, yeah, governance is something, I'm more like a DeFi incentives kind of guy, and I really like dealing with the farmers. I think it's very easy because they are very like rational economic actors, but when you think about governance, it's like people, so it's really, really difficult to deal with them and to like guess what they will think or do, so it's much more complicated governance than like farming. And then yeah, something that is actually true, and one of the biggest critique we get is that Minswap is not really decentralized on other DEX because, as I said, to deal with concurrency, some part of the transaction need to be batch off-chain, and this is done by the Minswap team, so I think we need to eventually focus on like more decentralization on that part. Yeah, and it will come. Okay, I think that's it. Do you have any question? If not, you can yeah, always reach me on Twitter, on Discord, or on email. Yeah, and thanks a lot.